Assalamu alaikum. My name is Mohammad Hassan Hassan Jinchua, and I'm going to give you a little brief introduction of what modern monetary theory actually is. So, modern monetary theory's origins, it was led by economists Warren Mosler, Bill Michel, and L. Randall Wray. In 2008, Bill Michel first used the term modern monetary theory. The main takeaways are simply that with the US dollar and our current monetary arrangements, federal taxes function to regulate demand and federal borrowing functions to support interest rates with neither functioning to raise revenue per se. In other words, operationally, federal spending is not revenue constrained. All constraints are necessarily self imposed and political. Modern monetary theory's main points are that a government that issues its own fiat money can pay for goods, services, and financial assets without a need to first collect money in the form of taxes or debt insurance in advance of such purchases. It cannot be forced to default on debt demonstrated in its own currency. It is limited in its money creation and purchases only by inflation, which accelerates once the real resources, such as labor, capital, and natural resources of the economy, are utilized at full employment. It can control demand pull inflation by taxation, which removes excess money from circulation. It does not compete with the private sector for scarce savings by issuing bonds.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Sana Batul, and the topic which I am going to present is Introduction of Money Monetary Policy. So it is hard to define it precisely because there is no single proponent or a document or a piece of literature that you can read. Though MMT can be explained as a heterodox macroeconomics framework, this theory proposes that the countries which issue their own currencies can never run out of money the way people and businesses can. It describes currency as a public monopoly and unemployment as evidence that a country monopolist is overly restricting the supply of the financial assets needed to pay taxes and satisfy saving desires. Moreover, it claimed that government create new money by using fiscal policy. According to advocates, the primary risk once the economy reaches full employment is inflation, which can be addressed by gathering taxes to reduce the spending capacity of private sector. Thank you.
Delighted to be here to discuss the pros of modern monetary theory. MMT has many positive effects, out of which the first one is MMT can revolutionize the political economy by helping in stabilizing failing markets and investment in underdeveloped countries that leads to their prosperity and raises the standard of living there, thus leading to the eradication of poverty and makes the world poverty free. And moreover, as MMT states that it is in the hand of government to print money according to their needs. So government spending can grow economy to its full capacity, eliminate unemployment, and also it is helpful in financing major programs, like it can be helpful to improve healthcare system. It can provide free college tuition financing and can improve the infrastructure of the country. To the next point, as we have seen that many economists argue that MMT can cause a great inflation. MMT can defend in a sense that increased government spending will not generate inflation as long as there is unused economic capacity or unemployed labor, because it only happens when an economy hits physical or natural constraints on its productivity, that is full employment. And inflation happens only when supply fails to meet demand. And one of the important positive points of MMT is that it gives free hand to government, who can print their own money to spend freely and can pay off their debts, thus making the country debt free and stabilizing the economy of the country. That leads to the development of the country. And one of the examples of COVID-19 outbreak to define MMT. Know that the COVID-19 outbreak has inflicted global economic distress that can be reversed by the Great Depression of 1930s. Millions have forced into unemployment. Businesses are teetering on the brink of collapse that causes many countries into economic hardships. In response to this fallout, governments and central banks have to support their respective economies. So MMT can be viewed as the candle of light in this dark time, because the goal is to generate economic growth, eliminate unemployment, and spur productivity through mass bouts of unlimited fiscal policy funding by printing money. Despite having many positive points, some traditional economists still have some issues with the MMT. Now,
This is Elizabeth Sajjad, and now I'll be discussing a few negative points in modern monetary theory which led it toward serious criticism. So here I begin. First thing about modern monetary theory is that it is not modern. It is actually mixed form of old, recycled and oversimplified Keynesian economic concept in just a new way. Second thing which is mainly criticized about modern monetary theory is its concepts about history of money. MMT says that money is chattel money. Now, what is chattel money? So, chattel money concept says that money is token of value created and spent by government and arises out of government need to get taxes. While monetary history doesn't support this argument because money emerged as natural market phenomena to solve problems of barter system. And from past 2000 years, money involves silver and gold bullions which are metallic money. And government cannot create gold and silver out of thin air but has to apply tax or borrow this metallic money. Thirdly, MMT presents central banks and fiscal authorities as unified system, while in majority of economies these systems are separated. So MMT just adds as if or suppose terms in arguments. Moving further, I'll discuss modern monetary theory stance over political economy limits to fiscal policies. It is known that MMT urges economy moving toward full employment by increasing wealth. So at this point, institutional arrangement for closing deficit is required to avoid inflation. But MMT just depends upon implausible political economy which increase problems. So MMT assumes that taxes can be increased abruptly, but it is not what happens in reality because it is politically and economically difficult to increase taxes at a sudden. So in fifth point, I'll discuss fiscal policy and monetary policy in MMT. Modern monetary theory parks nominal interest at zero. As discussed above, fiscal policy is difficult to run business cycle in MMT. So it means monetary policy will be followed by MMT? But no, MMT discards monetary policy which is interest rate policy by parking zero interest. Now, monetary policy is important tool in macroeconomic management and ignoring it can encourage economic instability. Moving next, in sixth point, modern monetary theory concepts about inflation is criticized. MMT simply says this concept, which is repeated many times, that government should run money financed budget deficit until full employment. At this stage, economy will become supply constrained. In next step, policymakers should step budget brake to prevent inflation. But this is not how inflation works in reality. In reality, fully employment isn't easily achieved as presented by MMT because multi-sector of economy meet that point at different levels, and this will create inflation indirectly. Now, at the end, while under consideration above all the criticism, I'll summarize modern monetary theory can lead toward inflation. When money supply is increased, acid price bubbles are created by overflow of money in different sectors of economy. So these bubbles run smoothly for some time, but all of a sudden they just burst and can cause inflation, like financial crisis in 2008.
Assalamualaikum, I'm Richa and I'll be discussing MMT's link with developing nations as well as implications of US printing trillions of dollars on Pakistan. While discussing the relationship of MMT with the developing countries, we have to keep in mind that not every country is trading and carrying out transactions with its own currency. Rather, there are many countries which adopt foreign currencies in order to carry on their trade activities, etc. Basically, when a financially weak government has to pay its debt, and what it does, it takes the money from the private institution in order to pay the external debts. Basically, taking money from private institutions, the government loses its political as well as financial sovereignty. As a result, it has limited policy options and policy space to be made, and if a country adopts foreign currency, it must have that currency not to carry out its trade. Means that their policy making largely depends on the ability to obtain the foreign currency. When we say that US has printed trillions of dollars, what it means to Pakistan is that eventually when there's a lot of printing of a currency, its value starts decreasing, and um, decrease in the US dollars will relatively increase, cause increase in the value of rupee. That increase is so relatively so small when compared to the inflation caused by the decrease in dollar value. When the government will buy the commodities on extremely high prices, it will ultimately increase the taxation on public. On the other hand, this situation also creates an opportunity for Pakistan.
As a part of a concluding remark about the modern monetary theory and the policy that it adopted by the US and its implications on Pakistan, we can say that usually Pakistan's economy is seen as a dependent economy. It's rather hypothesized as a dependent economy, which has seen its blossoms or booms depending upon what has happened around the world or what has happened in the international economic system. Though it is true up to some extent, but when we look around and research about it empirically, then Pakistan's economy is reckoned not because of what has happened around the world, but because of the what has happened within the country. The domestic events or the policies that the government adopted will resulted in the reckoning of the economic system. So while assessing it, we need to keep this thing in mind, but it cannot demean the fact that if an economic crisis will erupt in US, it cannot affect the economic system inside Pakistan, because if you look at it right now, Pakistan's economy is supported by the debts that we are receiving from IMF, or the reliefs such as COVID-19 relief funds that we are receiving from World Bank or the IMF, which somehow revolves around the US or US as a part of the international monetary system. So if anything will happen there, it will obviously affect Pakistan. But there's also a debate that whether this crisis will erupt or not, because obviously the people who are the followers of the orthodox economic theory, they say that US has adopted a policy and printed trillions of money, which will obviously trigger an inflation within the country, which will result in the economic crisis. But those who oppose it and those who are the representatives of the modern monetary theory, they say that no, such kind of situation has already was being created in the past, and US has printed huge amount of money before that, and people used to think that it may prompt towards inflation or economic crisis, but such kinds of thing didn't happen in the past, so it will not happen now, because US takes calculated risk, and it has the capacity and the resources to support the purchases of the extra money that it has printed in the last year. But if an economic crisis will arise, which will obviously blow the economic system inside Pakistan, what should Pakistan do? So there are two types of policies: macro and microeconomic economic policies should be adopted within Pakistan. Macroeconomic policies by the government, in which the government should strengthen its relationship with those countries, its economic relationship with those countries which have much safer economic system right now. For example, China, with which we have already a very good economic ties, but we should strengthen it more, and we should divert our imports or exports towards China more than the other country, or our dependency on US more than China, because China's economy is right now very strong, and it's the only country which has shown economic growth in the last year, even during COVID-19 crisis. And secondly, the monetary and the fiscal policies which will be adopted by the government of Pakistan should not have implications which are good. We should not have good immediate implications, but its long-term implications or effect should also be good. For example, if government uses wages or price control to fight inflation, then it can cause recession or job losses. So the policies which the government of Pakistan will adopt should be more sustainable, and its long-term effect should be good. Similarly,
the institutions which are present inside Pakistan, which according to Dr. Ishrat Hussain are the main reason why the economic system has been reckoned, they should be stabilized, they should be reformed. So whenever any kind of crisis will occur within the country, Pakistan can be able to cope with it. If in individual level, we can say that how we should be prepared for the crisis. Then we can say that the money that you have in cash, we know that their value is decreasing, so it should be converted into some other safer form, for example gold, or if internationally if we say it should be converted into cryptocurrency, because they are safer. But since cryptocurrency is not legalized inside Pakistan, so we can say that it's high time when a debate should be started within Pakistan